Howdy, howdy. How's everybody doing this afternoon? Hope you guys all got to check out that delicious cake contest, or excuse me, cake presentation we saw during lunch. Definitely made me hungry. And I'm going to share my screen now, and we're going to get started. Is the screen sharing? Let's see.
You can see the screen.
Alrighty, perfect. So this is a very personal story. It's a story about my family, about my friends, a story about Los Angeles, where I came from, and it's a story about geography. You can go ahead and use this QR code to use your phone to scan the QR code and follow along. And as you guys do that, I'll give you a little bit of background about me. I'm a native Angelino. I grew up here, born and raised. I went to Westchester High School, go Comets. I went to college here, Cal Poly Pomona, Southwest College, and CSUN. And again, growing up here, I definitely can remember times seeing, these almost mythical figures of these black cowboys walking down the street. I can remember the first time I actually saw a cowboy. I must have been about 4 or 5 years old, walking home from our very own Jesse Owens Park with my family. It was a typical blazing summer day in LA, and at the time, the mile walk in the heat seemed like a trek across the Mojave. But my family and I stood on an island in the center of the road waiting to cross the street. There was a river of cars going across. This was 98th Street. And as we waited, a shadow blotted out the sun. And when I looked up, all I could see was a silhouette of a man on horseback. And as my eyes focused, I saw him. And as I saw him, I saw a reflection of myself. I saw a reflection of my father and my uncles. This man looked like us. He dressed like us. He spoke like us. The stranger dapped up my father, gave him a nice pound. He tipped his hat to my father and to my mother and us kids, and disappeared into memory. I can't express to you guys now the joy and humility that I feel now embodying this almost mythical figure to the children of South Central Los Angeles. And with that, we're going to get into the story map, Urban Settlers 2. So I'm going to be walking you guys through this story map. I hope you guys can follow along. There's a lot of great pieces in here that are going to crack open Los Angeles for you. So today we're going to get into some real LA history, and we're going to use a phenomenal piece of Esri tech called a story map. I like to think of story maps as the next level of evolution of the textbook. It's pretty much the solution to your third grader's 50-pound backpack problem. We'll be using the power of maps to take our imaginations back in time and through space to a different but strangely familiar Los Angeles. We are going past the hippy dippy 60s. We're going past the roaring 20s and the golden age of Hollywood to a time and space before the West was one. And our first stop are the Afro-Mexican Pobladores of Los Angeles. The history of dark-skinned people of African descent living in LA can be traced far back in time, even to the point of the mythological age. Did you know that the state of California owes its name to a fictional medieval Black warrior queen by the name of Khalifa? But as for today's talk, we're going to land our time machine around downtown LA in 1781, where 44 Mexican settlers founded the pueblo or village that would flourish into what is now Los Angeles. These men, women, and children were strong, intelligent, resourceful, and black. 26 of the 44 were of African descent, making this a majority Afro Mexican community. Marion Matthews, California's first Black college trained librarians successfully pushed the city of Los Angeles to erect a monument to the Pobladores in 1981 for the city's bicentennial. This is a a diorama that can be found even today in LA County's Natural History Museum, depicting the diversity of the settlers. And I really hope that this history can serve as a uniting and unifying memory for the Black and Brown community members of Los Angeles for decades and decades to come. And this is probably one of my most favorite pieces of this whole presentation. We're going to move now 99 years into the future, and Los Angeles has undoubtedly established itself and grown beyond the small village of 44 individuals. I love this embedded web application here because it allows you to compare a geo-referenced map of LA from 1880 to an aerial imagery of Los Angeles from 2020. That's a 140-year change in geographic representation and technology. And as you can see, look how LA has boomed. In 1880, you pretty much couldn't find a road outside of downtown. And now, wow. So let's continue our journey. And not all the black pioneers of the old West Los Angeles were cowhands. Let's go through and learn about some of our famous Black settlers in Los Angeles. The Mason family, we have Bridget Mason, who escaped the horrors of American slavery to become a nurse, entrepreneur, and Los Angeles real estate mogul. This is her and her daughter. The Owens family, who are, again, another prominent Los Angeles African-American family, would found their fortune out west and became one of the wealthiest African-American families in LA. We have Sam Haskins, LA's first Black fireman, and Robert William Stewart, the Giant in Blue, LAPD's first Black officer. And we have the next part of our presentation. In LA, the streets tell the tale. As Los Angeles transitioned from Mexican rule to that of the United States in 1850, lawlessness and vice headed westward to the growing city. Unfortunately, just as we see today, much of the growing violence and vice in Old West LA was funneled toward the Black community. At the time, Los Angeles residents of African descent concentrated along a block-long stretch of adobe homes in the southwestern edge of the plaza, known today as Los Angeles Street. However, before becoming Los Angeles Street in 1877, in a display of institutional racism, city officials and racist LA socialites christened the street Calle de los Negros, a term we've heard recently in our own contemporary times. But this was back in the early 1840s. And as the US period of Los Angeles progressed, a much more vulgar street name became used and could be found in maps and official documents up until the 1930s. And you can see in this map, here's the plaza, here's the old Plaza Church, and Calle de los Negros is right here. So again, African Americans, Afro-Mexicans, people of African descent have been in Los Angeles and, again, the heart of Los Angeles prominently from the beginning. And we see evidence again here in 1875. Now let's transition into some African American heroes of the West. So in the Old West, at least 1 in 4 cowhands was Black. So most of you, we don't see very many depictions of African Americans in our old Western, romanticized movies and novels. However, 1 in 4, 25%, were of African descent. So let's learn about a few of my personal heroes. This is one of my favorite guys right here, Nat Love, and particularly just because his hair is absolutely amazing. But not only does he have the style all the way down packed, he was an expert marksman, an expert horseman, a peacemaker, and politician. He also was an author, and at the time when few people could even, read and write, he coined his own, penned his own autobiography. And he was so famous that his likeness was used for, at the time, they were called dime novels. They were kind of like comic books at the time, very, very popular pieces of media for the 1800s and into the 1900s. And his likeness was used for a character known as Deadwood Dick. And again, using story maps, you can use these sliders to show, sliding images and pictures. And you can see how they have his hat, they have the handkerchief. His whole image is pretty much down here for this character, Deadwood Dick. You have Stagecoach Mary Fields, who was recently featured as in a fictional Western movie on Netflix. She actually was a member of the Pony Express. She carried mail for the United States during the Old Western period, and perhaps the most famous black cowboy would be Bill Pickett. We now have the Bill Pickett Rodeo. Bill Pickett was a famous rodeo superstar and actor. He invented the technique called bulldogging, where the cowboy essentially jumps off the horse and wrestles the cow to the ground. And he, again, now has a wonderful, wonderful rodeo named after him, which I suggest everyone take a look at and participate in. Fast forwarding again to the year 2022, and the cowboy tradition is still strong and alive in Los Angeles. We have various groups that you've heard of, like Compton Cowboys and various others. Today we're going to be talking about Urban Saddles, and particularly Guan Featherstone, who's my neighbor and executive director of Urban Saddles. And this is an equestrian NGO whose mission is to build hope and opportunity for youth and community through the equine experience and the cowboy code of the West. Guana's team immediately paired me up with Mr. Knight, a 13-year-old Tennessee Walker and Urban Saddles' unofficial mascot, and we were off. They welcomed me in. I felt the patience and fidelity and jokes, that come with all you expect from cowboys being raised in Los Angeles. So while groups like Urban Saddles seek to preserve our history through community engagement, we have entrepreneurs like Mr. Greg Pittman featured here in the center. They use their horsemanship skills and his executive experience and classic Los Angeles style to craft the Western lifestyle brand that's a good look today. And they host an annual barrel race, which is a horse game and camp out event every year. And this year it took place at LA County's Fred Palmer Equestrian Center. Speaking of equestrian centers, LA County's equestrian centers are located a bit far away from the center of African American communities located here in central and south central Los Angeles. We can see here represented by the horseshoes, our DPR equestrian centers, as well as our trails, superimposed over this racial predominancy map of LA County. Let's talk a little bit about All Hoofs In. Mr. Pittman decided to host the All Hoofs In event at Marshall Canyon Regional Park's Fred M. Palmer Equestrian Center, one of LA County's 5 equestrian parks. Marshall Canyon boasts 119 acres containing 40 campsites, barbecues, a volleyball court, and dance floor. The Fred Palmer Equestrian Center offers a full-size training arena with a judge's stand, water troughs, and a 45 individual horse stalls. When asked why he chose Fred Palmer as a venue for All Hooves In, Mr. Pittman responded, the facility is beautiful, it's tranquil and turnkey. It has everything we need. Making the reservations was a smooth process, and working with LA County Parks was easy. The back equestrian groups, and this is a video you guys can check out of the event. It was a wonderful event. You'll see me featured in there. For a guy like me, it was heaven on earth. But to get back into it, the Black equestrian groups of Los Angeles and throughout the United States comprise a solid and close-knit community woven together by a rich history of independent spirit and the love of horses. Mr. Pittman, CEO of Gila Corral, put it this way: the history of America is the history of the Black cowboy. And I'd like to give a special thanks to LA County Department of Parks and Rec, Urban Saddles, and That's a Good Look Today. If you guys like any more information, please use the links to check out some of these great books. And that's pretty much it for my talk. So I'll stop sharing now.